Hello, Tom.
How you doing?
All right. You look comfy in there?
Oh yeah, it's my combo audio room office.
Yeah. I know you don't get a lot of work done in there, that's for sure.
Actually, I never turn the main system on when I'm working because I would never get any work done.
No, it's way too distracting.
I have a couple of little infinity speakers I have on my desk, and I play some background music. That's why I never really had a big system in my car because I felt I would get so involved in the music I'd probably wrap myself around the nearest tree.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, I can't work with background music on. I'm sorry. I want to stop listening.
Yeah.
It's just background music doesn't make sense. But yeah, look at your system. Wow. It looks really nice.
Well, you saw my presentation in December, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that outlined all the stuff I did for it. Um, I've had a lot of different systems over the years, and this one to me gives me the most sense of what the performers are doing. I call it texture. You can hear all the separation of the instruments. You can hear the tonalities and the voices. And it has great dynamic range and
Yeah.
stuff for classical music, but
Yeah.
primarily I get a better sense of what the artists are trying to do when it's very clear.
Yeah.
The room treatments had a major impact on it too.
That I believe.
Yeah.
All of these things are just one refinement after the next. And
Yeah. If
it's just
you,
amazing how you think that you're there. It's working.
yeah,
Great. Then
I,
a year or two later, it's like, I
how did
was
I
so
ever live with
wrong.
that? Yeah.
I was an idiot.
It's
Yeah.
amazing the number of
You know,
times I've,
there's a litmus test that I've discovered over the years, and that is the more the system makes different records and different recordings sound different. Not just that the music's different or the recording's different, of course, but even just the noise signature, the tone of the hiss, the
yes.
moment it starts, there's this sense of space, right?
Yep.
And if that's very distinctive, one recording to the next, then you're onto something. That's a good
It's
sign.
It's really interesting too, because as the system has gotten better, I've listened to more older music that's not in any way audiophile music. Like just the other day, I was listening to War. Why can't we be friends?
Oh,
And
right.
I was just listening, and I said, "My God, listen to how much is in this crappy commercial recording."
Yeah. Well,
And then the
you can turn up your nose, but if you know what's really interesting, if there's any song that you find that you like from any period, find out who produced it because that will be a breadcrumb lead to more things that you will enjoy. Because the producer actually has huge impact on what it is that you're liking about that record. I've discovered. So Doug Sachs, whose name is well known in
oh
the
yeah,
recording industry and so on. Oh my Lord, he was responsible for everything, everything I like. I had no idea. He was just he had his fingers in so many projects. What a productive guy. But that was just one where bothering to look up who the producer was led me to a whole treasure trove of things I'd never heard before that turned out to be very good. Yeah.
I put something on the other day that I hadn't listened to forever. It was the soundtrack from the uh, series in the 50s, Victory at Sea, was done by the RCA Symphony Orchestra.
Okay.
And I was listening to this, and the sound of the hall and the players and the
Mhm.
instruments was, for this old crappy recording. And it was just so amazing.
Yeah. Well, those guys knew what they were doing. Wasn't so crappy.
Yeah, I mean, you want to really hear something, go back and listen to some of the recordings in the 50s, like Harry Belafonte in Carnegie Hall.
Yeah.
And it has such a sense of space and
Yeah.
presence of all the instruments and the people. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's wonderful stuff. Yeah, Well, this is a very famous recording, the Weavers in Carnegie Hall for their reunion,
Yeah.
and it's yeah, it's very lively. It's wonderful. You can feel the audience participation. It's really neat. That's a CD I always go back to when I make a change to my stereo, and I was like, okay, that's it. I've got it. And then I have to listen to the Weavers singing "Goodnight, Irene," or
You know, it's amazing because people talk about how you can determine how good a reproduction is by the voices. But another thing I found out, one of the real tests is how good the system is what does the applause sound like? Applause everybody knows what applause sounds like. The peaks in applause are huge. And then when you get a whole group and you can hear all different hands doing different things,
right.
that really tells you a lot.
Maybe the Boston Audio Society should make a CD of the
Of
greatest
applause.
applause of all time.
I might point
And
out
it's
that
good for testing your system.
many cardioid microphones have very poor peaky response in the reversed field. And so there can be on the recording of poor sounding applause, which is not intentional.
That's interesting and important. Yeah, because you could toss out the baby with the bathwater if you get too hung up about these things. All right. Well, we're 2 minutes away from the top of the hour. Do we have Chris Hart here?
Tom Fenner. How
Hello,
y'all doing?
Tom. I see you now. I am Ken.
Hi,
Very nice to meet you.
Tom, Ken Wax here. I met you at CEDIA and introduced you to Boston Audio Society.
Thank you, Ken. How are you doing today?
Good. I am at an airport now, so I'm going to stay on
Oh,
mute.
you
So you
are?
don't hear the announcements. Yeah, I've been at a trade show in Orlando. I'm heading back to Boston in an hour or so.
Okay.
But I scheduled a flight so I could get at least part of your session.
Well, I appreciate that. So, how's everything in Boston? Or so where are you at now then?
Well, I'm in Orlando, and
Oh,
I
okay.
suppose I got already 2 snowplow bills while I was away, so
Oh,
I guess it's been snowing.
right, right. Well, I'm in Denver, Littleton, actually, south of Denver. Hello? And it's it's only about 10 degrees here, so it's been crazy cold. And it's supposed to get colder tonight. So you said you did a trade show in Orlando?
I, unless you wanted to hear the Aeromexico announcement, I put it on mute. Yeah,
Oh, I gotcha.
I've been at a trade show that attracted about 50,000 people at
Oh,
Orlando for building automation and air conditioning.
okay.
So just want to tell everyone I met Tom Fenner at CEDIA, the Custom Electronic Design and Installation Association. I wrote an article about the show in the Boston Audio Society Speaker, and Tom's technology caught my eye. He's going to tell you about it, but it's basically a claim that he can improve your health. So I'll let you judge.
Well, thank you very much for Ken for making the introduction. And Tom, thank you for joining us this evening. Let me start the meeting officially and we'll lay out the agenda. So first I'll introduce myself. I'm Ken Schwartz, the president of Boston Audio Society. And tonight's meeting, we also invited the Connecticut Audio Society. I'd like to welcome any members who joined us. Since it's a Zoom meeting, it's easy to extend that invitation. Well, maybe they'll be joining us in a short while. Chris Hart said he would like to come. But yeah, so we start our meetings first with open forum. This is an opportunity for members to share remarks, things they've been thinking about or noticed, news, questions for the group. So we'll open the floor to that.
Hi, I just want to say welcome to Ken. He's our new president, and you people on Zoom didn't get to know this at the last January meeting because we weren't Zooming it. Logistically, it's very hard to do that. So I wanted to welcome on our Zoom forum here. Welcome to Ken, our new president.
Thank you. This is almost a devious laughter.
Ah.
See, I got the ball now. But yeah,
That's
thank you
just
very
deep
much, Nick.
sympathies,
Yeah.
Ken.
No, I'm thrilled. I'm gonna have a good time doing this, and I'll look forward to working with more and more people in the group. Many people I know by face and name, but I've not met face to face because of Zoom or whatever. But I've been in the club for about 20 years and kind of embarrassed that I've been on the receiving end of all the goodness, but except for one meeting that we had at my house where I got to have everybody come over and listen to my stereo and tell me how wonderful it was. Except for that, I haven't really made too many contributions. So this is my way of doing that. And yeah, I think that there's a lot we can do, and I'm excited. So yeah, looking forward to working with everybody on new projects.
Aren't you the person who enables our Zoom links?
That's true. That's true. Yeah. So I've got the Zoom account that we share. Not sure if that's actually kosher. So oh my God, it's on the recording. They're gonna get me with the AI.
No, you're
It's
on
okay.
record now.
I am. No, it's okay. I'm sure it's fine. Yeah. So let's see. Do we have any open forum remarks?
I
Bill Goldberg.
I gave Alvin a list of companies that I met at the Consumer Electronics Show that I thought might be of interest for future meetings. One of the companies reached out to me on their own. They're actually local, they're in Cambridge, and they claim to have earbuds that promote improved health.
Earphones or
Earbuds.
bud? Oh,
Ear-
okay. Well, there's a lot of binaural audio out there that makes that claim. But in fact, in many of my healing frequencies, I use what's termed a differential or a beat mix. And so with that, we can get down to 5 hertz, 8 hertz, Schumann resonance frequencies, and that kind of stuff. Typically, the driver, we list it as a range of 20 to 20, so 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz. But by using differential frequencies, like say 100 hertz and 105 on one channel, 105 on the other, then we get that beat mixer, so we can produce that 5 hertz, which is supposed to be stimulate the natural and opiate zones and improve your endorphin flow and that kind of thing. But in fact, HemiSync's been doing that for many years, and I actually use one of their frequencies on one of my massage tables with a set of headphones, and I ran one called Energize because a friend of mine had given me this whole link to HemiSync, and I ran the Energize one, and I was up for like 40 hours straight with no sleep and no fatigue at all, and felt very sharp. And so I called my buddy back and I said, "Hey, what's up with this frequency? Because I've been up for 40 hours now straight and still feel pretty good." He says, "Well, that was actually developed by the Russian Air Force for pilots to fly long distance missions." I said, "Okay, well that starts making sense." So it's just another case of where different frequencies can do different things, so you kind of have to be careful with it, or or know what you're getting into. So it's but I know that there's a lot of the HemiSync stuff still out there, but I just wanted to say that I really love Boston, so I was excited to be invited to your society, if you will. And in fact, did the Patriot Trail here last summer, and then my son told me to mention to you that he lives in Yarmouth, so he's down in Cape Cod. And he's actually put my transducers in his couch and in the center console of his boat and is using it for barnacle prevention. So just another application. So we've done belt applications years ago. And so we can actually impart music and pick up a microphone. We could do diver recall and all kinds of things through the boat hull. So just another application for these transducers. But of course, I don't know how much you know about me. My middle name is Clark.
Oh, Tom,
Yes.
just so you know, we'll start your presentation in a little while. What
Oh, okay.
we ordinarily do is have an open forum first, where people who
great.
want to share things can, and then we won't keep that too long because we want to devote most of our time to your presentation. Then we could
Perfect.
come back to open forum if there's more remarks. But I just
Okay.
want to make sure that you were aware.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry to cut you off there, but we'll definitely
You're good.
come back to you in a moment. Any so Ken, you had shared a remark. Anybody else have a anything for open forum?
Yeah, Ken, congratulations, Joe Goldberg.
Oh, thank you, Joel.
Haven't seen you for a while. I notice your background. Does that imply you're operating in a vacuum?
No, there's plenty of air. I'm
Plenty
on
of
the outside of the tubes. Thank you very much.
I'd be seeing you.
Yeah, but it's toasty warm here. It's cold outside, but it's nice.
Keep those filaments going.
Yeah, it's from Russia with love, all of them.
One thing I wanted to mention, because we've been down, I'm back now in the wonderful world of Rhode Island. I gave up a month or two in sunny Florida, which wasn't so sunny, to come back. The first day back, I was busy clearing snow off my driveway. But I happened to stumble on something. We've been using my wife's computer for Zoom stuff, and mine too, but neither one of them has a tremendously loud output. And it came across a little gadget called a VOC Boom, VOCBOOM. It's about $70. It's slightly smaller than a shoebox. And the thing has an amazing amount of output energy. It's very loud, and it goes pretty deep. I think probably down to 80 or 100 hertz. And it's very small, battery-powered Bluetooth. I don't have it with me. It's still in Florida. I'll probably bring it back next month. But it was just kind of an impressive little gadget. If you need something quick, portable, battery-powered, Bluetooth accessible, it also has an aux input. And if you have a pool party or something, it probably would work real well for that. Because I know when I was initially testing it, I was upstairs in a concrete-lined building, just running some very reasonable frequency sweeps on it. And my wife came running up screaming at how loud it was.
Oh.
But it's called a VOC Boom, VOCBOOM, courtesy of Amazon. And it's an impressive little gadget. I was quite surprised at how good it is.
You know what its power is?
They claim, I believe, 50 watts or thereabouts. It does have a fairly healthy battery supply. It'll run for, I guess, 12 to 15 hours on batteries. It's totally waterproof. The way you charge it is it has a little rubber plug that is attached that you pull out, and it's got a USB-C capability for charging, and that's where the aux input and the charging input are. And then you put that back in, and yes, you can immerse the whole bloody thing. And it's very small. I was surprised. Maybe about, if it's a foot wide, that's a lot, and maybe 4 inches thick and about 6 or 7 inches high with a handle. And, if your kids like to party somewhere, that's a gadget that they'd probably love. But it was also very impressive in terms of the overall frequency response and audio output. It has, I believe, 5 speakers, one of which may be a mass-loaded woofer in the bottom of it, because it does have impressive output all across the frequency spectrum, and is a musical instrument of sorts. But just thought I'd mention that in passing. If anybody's interested, look it up on Amazon. It's called VOC Boom, VOCBOOM.
Thank you, Alan. Anybody else?
I'm
Yeah, John,
mentioning
go ahead.
the VAS speaker.
Oh.
David Moran is officially retired. I don't know why after 35 years of doing this. Um,
Hope
so
it's not my fault.
So I'm editor. Ken Wax has agreed to be a layout person because I don't know anything really about laying things out, and that's what's David Moran's particular skill and giving things a professional gloss. Well, we may not quite achieve that anymore, but I'm quite satisfied just to have something that looks clean and easy to read.
So will Ken be the final arbiter of how it looks?
Yeah, technically yes, because he's a publisher. But I just read through everything again, and I found another set of typos, and so and I'm sure Nick will also help in the proofreading, so we want to try to get as many eyes on it as possible. And I'm glad to have somebody that's an audiophile being involved in this. We could just pay somebody to be a layout person, but it's a plus to have somebody that can bring sort of an audiophile's perspective to things and maybe have some additional comments and things.
Well, thank you very much, Ken Wax.
Yes.
And
Oh, and
David.
just one other thing, by great coincidence, my monthly message this month is about how playing sounds helps fungi to grow better.
Yeah, I saw that.
Well, we'll find out.
Well, there's good
I'm
fungi
sorry,
and bad
make
fungi.
what grow
There's-
better?
Fungi, as in fungus.
Oh, mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
So
Right.
they're like bacteria. There must be good fungi and bad fungi. So,
So
you know,
it's
depending
it-
upon the kind of music and the quality of sound, I suppose you're going to get what you're going to get.
Sounds like a good market for acid rock to get rid of all the poisonous mushrooms.
Well, maybe we could get rid of the mildew in my shower with the right kind of sound. That's Tom's presentation, so we're going to have to hold on that discussion.
Okay.
Yep. So, John, you had your hand up, a question, right? Or a comment?
Yeah, I just want to give a very short little report on the AES meeting that was February 6th, held in Newton at Peerless Mastering. And for some reason or other, I thought when I got the first notice, they did record mastering, and I thought it was like a plant where they do that, you know, that they make records, but it isn't. It's they take the tapes from artists and just remaster them for releases, you know, down the road. A gentleman by Jeff Lipton runs the place. He's been there for 30 years. He owns the place, and they had their 30th anniversary. And it was much more interesting than I thought it was going to be. He's a fascinating fellow. I asked him some questions like, how many mastering jobs do you do a year? He said between 250 and 400.
Wow.
And yeah. And so there were a good number of people there. There were probably about 30 people there, 35 coming and going. And I got there a little early, and he says to me, like, come on in. He says, do you know what Dolby Atmos is? I said, absolutely. And I love surround sound and immersive audio. I love movies, so I live for that stuff. And I've heard a lot of things through the years that, they sounded okay. But he says, come on in here. And I sat down at the mastering table, and you could see the speakers around. Very beautiful studio. And he wanted me to listen to Rocket Man that was mastered in Dolby Atmos. Now, he didn't do the mastering, but I find out later that there's a special Blu-ray release of like 40 Elton John songs that were remastered in Atmos. Only sold in England, sold out almost immediately. If I want to get one used, they're like $150. But I sat down and he put on Rocket Man, and I've heard that a million times. And in the early recordings, it always grated on me. And a lot of times you can't understand what he's saying. It wasn't the best mastering I don't think Elton John records ever had. I got to tell you, especially the beginning is kind of quiet and he's talking over some piano. And Jeff says to me, oh, no, wait. He said, I'm going to leave you, but wait until the chorus kicks in. I was absolutely blown away. And I said to him when he came back in the room, this was a religious experience. And I could have moved into that place and never eaten and just never moved. I would have slept there. It was absolutely an incredible recording to hear. And the placement of everything in the room, it sounded so natural, so balanced. I just never heard anything like that before. And Elton John was about 6 feet in front of me, maybe a foot above my head. And when the chorus came in from the surrounds, it was so well done. I said the balance was great. So anyways, I didn't want to leave there, but everybody else came in and, you know, they just wanted to talk to him. They've also, that company, Jeff's company, has plenty of plaques hanging on the wall where they won several Grammy Awards for mastering. And all the records that were in there, the albums, I said to him, "Are these all the ones you've mastered?" And he said, "Yeah." Yes. I couldn't believe the quantity of them. And he didn't shy away from naming names who comes in there and, you know, he sits with to go through the process. Yeah, he has one woman working with him for a number of years, and her name was Maria Rice. She is temporarily gone. I guess she's in Hollywood. She's probably under NDA, can't say anything that she's doing. But he also is breaking in this young girl. I'd say she's probably in her early 20s. Her name is Cause. But I wish he could have talked. I was trying to record him talking to other people. And all I can think of is it'd be nice if we can get him at a meeting to talk about his background. But he was shy about talking as I was recording him, because I asked him at the very, very beginning, "Do you mind if I take pictures and record?" He says, "No, not at all." So when he's talking to other people, I got my phone up, I get the camera up, and he says to me after 10 minutes, "Are you recording this?" I says, "Yeah, you want me to stop?" He says, "Well, I just feel shy." He says, "I'm not a very good speaker." Well, he was a very good speaker. Fascinating. So anyways, that was that. I thought it was well worth the trip there. And that's it.
Hey, John, do you think we could do a field trip there? What do you think?
Yeah, I'd call him and ask him. This is AES, I think, didn't Boston Audio get a notice about that too, or maybe not. I'll call him and ask him.
It sounds, I mean, I'd like to hear this thing, and maybe others would as well. We could organize a trip out there as a group.
Yeah.
You know, the BAS group needs to go check it out.
Yeah.
That sounds great. I'd love to hear it.
Tucked away in a highly industrialized, dumpy area in Newton. And when you look it up online to get directions, all you see is some sewing company. They do sewing classes, sell sewing supplies. Those signs were everywhere. And Peerless Mastering had a sign this big somewhere, you know, so, but found it anyway.
For people in the know.
Yeah, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, let's see what we can do.
Okay.
Just a show of hands who might be interested in going to this thing. Yeah, it looks like we got a good crowd. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll look into that. Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
thank you for that. So yeah, I've got one that I can share with you. This is a web page that I found. It's pretty interesting. So check this out. So this is this is Facebook, and it's the Audio Cafes Museum and Parodies group. It got recommended to me. God knows why. Some AI figured me out. And people are posting these audiophile listening bars that are all over the world. Now, I lived in Japan from 1995 to 2002, so 7 years. And there were these kinds of places in Japan, and they were super fun because they were typically set up with these, real badass JBL studio monitor type speakers, or older, big ones. And they'd have lots of vinyl and really nice setting. And then they would play music. And the understanding was it was not background music. It was a concert. So everybody sits there very quietly and listens. It was kind of fun. And you can go to these different places, and they spend a lot of money on their stereos because that is the point for these places. So you can scroll through and see that this is a worldwide phenomenon. Wow,
Mm.
every city in the world. So I went ahead and posted to the group, are there any places in Boston? And the answer is yes. There's a place called Headroom HiFi inside the Trillium Brewery in the Seaport, and Spy Bar inside the Revolution Hotel, and also Temple Records Cocktail Bar. And then and then this other guy, Rob Jackson, said message me if I'm looking, and it didn't really go anywhere, but at least we got these couple. And so my question to the group is, has anybody been to any of these places? Are they any good? And anybody want to go with me to go check them out and do an exclusive BAS report? Because my sense is that we can't really do a field trip to these places because it'll be expensive, because it's actually going to be a bar and a group, a restaurant. So it's not you can't really have a meeting there or rent the place out, but we could go check it out.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
if anybody's interested, message me, let me know. I'm curious. I might go to one of these and see what's up with it. But when I lived in Japan, this is a famous one. It's called Lion Cafe in Shibuya, which is one of the busiest districts in Tokyo. And if you ever see those photographs of that crossing where literally thousands of people are crossing the street all at the same time, it's probably Shibuya. That's
I think it's the busiest in the world.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. And it's full of young people, and it's a fun, exciting place. But the place I love most in Shibuya is really for old fogies. It's called Lion, like the roar of the lion. And here it is. This is the exterior. So you can tell right away that it's been around for a long time. It's definitely kind of sooty and old. And inside, this is their stereo. Can you see? It might be a little small, but I hope you can appreciate that it's just wild with all of these old speakers, and lining the walls is a lot of vinyl. And then they have two floors to this place. So this is a 2-story back wall, and then facing it are these like movie seats, these chairs that are on 2 levels. So you sit and you enjoy the record as a concert. So the guy at the bar, picks out the record and he plays the record and everybody shuts up and listens. And then there are a lot of people there, they're sitting and smoking and they're wearing berets, and you definitely get the feeling that it's a very artsy place. But it's a hangout. It's been around for 3 generations. So this is, here are the speakers that are filling the place with sound. Anyway, that's very typical in Japan, these kinds of things. And it's so interesting that there's a music professor who is in the process of writing a book about them. So who knows, when it's time for him to promote his book, maybe we can get him as a speaker to tell us all about it. But I'd be curious to go to these ones that are in Boston and see what's up.
Sounds like a variation of the old AR music room.
I'm not familiar with that.
Acoustic Research in the early days used to set up a room in Cambridge. It actually was a storefront. I forget the name of the street, but they also had one in Grand Central Station in New York. And they would play music and so forth through their speakers to demonstrate the new acoustic suspension design, which they had invented and were promoting. And anybody could walk in, and yeah, it was quite a shock. I still kind of remember walking into one at one point and going, wow, one of the grabbers was they had a woofer in the window that they were driving quite hard because it was I guess a 12-inch woofer in the box, and they were driving it with like I would guess about a half hertz or a hertz. So this woofer was sitting there moving in and out in the front window to kind of draw you into, hey, this is a loudspeaker that you need to hear. And that's how they initially started promoting acoustic research products.
John's comment about being wowed by the surround sound reminds me of an article I dug up when I was a student. about the first widescreen commercial production called Cinerama.
Hmm.
It premiered in September 1952, and the New York Times review amazingly didn't focus on the video. It focused on the audio.
Hmm.
The reviewer was amazed by the 6-channel stereo and the Mormon Tabernacle Choir singing America the Beautiful.
Wow. Well, sound is so important. I mean, it's, you know, there's a special on TV. I think it's the John Williams special. And they talk about really how music is 50% at least of the movie in the sense of experience, and video being the other. And one doesn't necessarily work without the other. And it's so true, especially when you're watching the John Williams films that he's scored. You can see they go together. You separate either one and you've got nothing, in my opinion. The two just mesh together perfectly and make something that's greater than the individual parts.
Well, we're reaching the bottom of the hour here. So what I'd like to do is we'll stop these open forum remarks. We can come back to them after Tom speaks, but we want to be respectful of his time. And just a couple words of introduction, but a thought about this idea of music therapy, which is what he will be talking about. So I had first heard about this only a few years ago because a friend of mine was working on her PhD, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said she was learning about music used for healing in ancient Greece and the Byzantine Empire, and then the Abbasid Caliphate. And this was her PhD thesis. She had just finished working on her master's thesis on Viking Age music. So, I was under the impression that music therapy was kind of an old-fashioned thing, but knowing that we were going to be having this presentation, I did a little bit of research, and I found out that it's actually a very big deal. So there's about 2 million people in the US got music therapy this past year. So it's millions of people are getting therapy, and it's a $2.6 billion business today.
I attended a presentation at MIT with Renee Fleming, the opera singer, and she's helping with research at MIT on reaching people who've had strokes and lose their speaking ability, but reaching them with music.
It's a very big deal. There's a YouTube video of a ballerina who is now afflicted with Alzheimer's and is effectively unresponsive. She's just sitting there doing nothing, and they put headphones on her and play the theme music from Swan Lake, and suddenly she leaps to life and starts moving her arms to the music, and they then superimpose the movie footage of her at her prime dancing this music, and you can see the elegance and the grace still in her. All of this comes back, and she's alive again with the music. So it reaches this very primal part of you. So I learned a little bit about this. It's a very big deal, and it is growing rapidly. So I guess it's a boom, or maybe it's boomy. No, it's not boomy. It's very tight. Well, so music can relax you, or it could distract you, and it can stimulate you, or engage you, or hypnotize you, pick you up, or could lull you to sleep. But what's good for the ear seems to be good for the body, and maybe the soul too. So, I'm very excited then to have Tom here. Tom is the president of HiFi Vibe, the company HiFi Vibe, and he is an expert in sound therapy, or what he calls vibration healing. And since the 1970s, he's been developing transducers and applying them in ways that help people overcome things like hearing loss and reducing pain and stress, and remediating some effects of things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease. So really important and fascinating stuff. So let me turn it over now to Thomas. so he can tell us all about his work.
All right, thank you. That was great. As I was saying, because my middle name is Clark, I don't know if you guys ever heard of Clark synthesis, but that was pretty prevalent in the 90s. We did, quite a few shows at CES with likes of Harmon Group, and Sydney was a fan, and Runco, Sam was a fan. So we did, multi-million-dollar home theaters with them. I left Clark in 2000. And at that point, I had three patents tied up in Clark synthesis, but I have since filed new patents on. I changed the design. I always had people complaining that the Clark synthesis transducer was too big and heavy and very difficult to apply to your furniture. And so I always had people saying, well, if you get to magnetic mounting, that would be good. And I built the first magnetically mounted transducer in 2012. In fact, now I tried to figure out this whole Zoom thing and how I could share, screens and that kind of thing, but it didn't seem to be very successful. So what I've done is put some of this on my big screen TV, and so I can just reverse the camera on this. And so this shows you the progression of what I've been building since 1978. In fact, this guy here is one of the original waterbed transducers. And the whole idea with this was to push back your waterbed mattress and shove this underneath. At that time, I had an old Pioneer SX1250, and it would, well, I should take a step back here. The first transducer, and I don't have a picture of it, was actually a Chevy Moon hubcap with 3 rolling stars screwed into it. I don't know if you ever ran into those back in the 60s, where they're little hockey puck shaped devices that you could screw into the wall. So I put 3 of those in that Chevy Moon hubcap, and then hooked it up to my Pioneer SX1250 and cranked it up pretty high to get through the waterbed mattress. And it lasted for, probably 10 minutes before it let the smoke out. So this one here was the next derivation, and this is using a standard speaker magnet structure. This happens to be ceramic, and then a high density voice coil. This same driver, without this part of it, was actually coated and then thrown in the pool. And so then we had underwater sound. And so that was the first one that we put together for the synchronized swim teams so that they could hear their music underwater. And the reason it was popular is because Lubel's and some of the other ones out there would actually induce current into the water. So if you got closer, you could feel the energy coming off of it. And so this was a great improvement over that technology. Further down the line, this is one of the first Clark prototypes. This one, this is, this one was hand built from blow molded plastic. This is our first injection molded product, and this was actually made from Lexan, and it was meant to be bulletproof, but we were creating so much force. There are, in this particular unit, there's 8 neodymium magnets, and so we're creating a lot of force. And with the higher frequencies, it would start to crack the Lexan. So we moved away from that. And this one was
excuse me, Tom. If
Sure.
people are having trouble seeing it, if you right click on Tom's screen, there's an option called PIN, P-I-N. If you click that, you'll fill your screen with his window.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not for you, Tom. It's for everyone else.
Oh, okay. So did everybody get that? That was good
Yeah,
information. I didn't know that wasn't appearing. So, anyway, moving right along. So this one was actually a material that Disney came out with. It's an ABS PVT, and so that would actually prove to be much stronger than the Lexan. So that was the end of the Clark era, for me at least, in 2000. And so then these are some of the first 3D printed devices that I built. And it's now you see, instead of having this big fastener on here, we've now gone to a magnet. And so now this is a little older unit here in the white nylon. So we've played around with the 3D printed materials. There's quite a bit of difference now, and there's a lot of different processes that come out. So it's what we found to work, quite well. Talking about the history, this is kind of where I started. This is actually a chair that was built in the late 1800s by a fellow by the name of Charcone, and his observation was that people were riding in wagons, and if they were driving over the cobblestone roads, it would improve their Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. So that's some of the first thing that we saw using vibration as a physical healing device. Oh, I lost my screen. I got to be careful here what I'm doing. And so, there it is. So that was the first attempt at using vibration for healing. In 2012, actually somewhat before that, we put together our first massage table with transducers in it, and used, in fact, some of the synchronous beats and that kind of stuff as a healing medium. But we found that music was actually better, because if you take a good piece of music, depending on what your mood is for that day, if it's rock and roll, we can energize you. If it's classical music, can have a very relaxing effect. And so, but from that, I developed from our clinical trials. I ran into, used a whole bunch of those. In fact, that's on, let's see if I can do this. Oh, there's my old Carver ZR 1600. I use that for testing. So we like the classical amplifiers. And I was gonna go. I better get back to my notes here. My wife said, you're gonna get off track. So I'll get back on track. So let's see here.
Hey, Tom, this is Ken. A question for
Yes.
you while you're reorganizing here. Can you tell us a little bit about what sound therapy is, and where it comes from, and how it works? Because it's something that I don't really understand at all.
Well, as somebody pointed out, on my website, if you look at some of the Alzheimer's stuff, I actually have a video that I took, or was presented on the internet back in the late 1980s. And that showed a gentleman who was in the latent stages of Alzheimer's, and they put a set of headphones on him and played him the music, much like you mentioned the ballerina. And that brought him out of, and he was pretty far advanced with the Alzheimer's. And so that was when I worked at a nursing home. So we actually took one of our chairs into the nursing home, and under the same premise, played music. We took an individual who was in the latent stages of Alzheimer's and was combative, non-responsive, didn't take herself to the bathroom or anything else, so pretty far advanced. And we took her as our first subject and put her in one of the chairs I was building at the time and played her music, and it happened to be they tried a few different things and then thought, well, why don't we play her music that she was familiar with? So the same thing as what happened with the ballerina, that she was familiar with way before the onset of disease. And so they said, well, you know, she's from the 40s, early mid 40s, and so they put on Tommy Dorsey music. And so over the course of a weekend, I was a maintenance director there at the time, supporting my inventing habits. And this is before Clark and I got involved. And with three 1 hour sessions, the first time she was a little hesitant to sit in the chair, but once I got her kind of pushed down in there and turned on the Tommy Dorsey music, she was finally calmed down and really started enjoying it. And that's the first 1 hour session. The following day, that was a Friday. On a Saturday, they went to her room and asked if she'd like to try the chair again. And she actually stood up and walked to the recreation room. So that was quite an improvement, because typically her modus operandi was to sit in a wheelchair by the employee entrance and try to escape anytime that someone would come in or out the employee entrance. On Sunday, she walked down to the recreation department and asked to do the chair again for another hour. And that was in the morning. And after her other 1 hour session, she actually took herself to breakfast and was, after eating breakfast, went down and was playing the piano and went to church. So that was in basically 3 hours. There was a huge change in her modus operandi. And I attribute that to, so the music is very powerful in itself, obviously, because we're stimulating, you know, different functions as far as the memory. But when we add tactile sound to that, or what I call sensory stimulation now, or multi-sensory stimulation, we're actually exciting 4 different sensory inputs: tactile, haptic, kinesthetic, and bone conduction. So we're representing some audio. But the tactile and the haptic and the kinesthetic are all left brain function, and the audios are right brain function. So as we stimulate both hemispheres of the brain with that same information, I believe, it's just my theory, that starts recreating the synaptic response that's, you know, lost due to myelin sheaths. There are all kinds of different theories on, you know, what causes dementia. So that was a very telling thing. So after that, we had a guy from corporate that came in, and his whole his speech was on paradigm shifts in the healthcare nursing home industry. And at this point, I had those results documented by the recreation department, the nurse practitioner, and her doctor. And so they were all present at this thing called the paradigm shift in healthcare. And after the guy was done, we all went up and told him about what had happened, and he was excited and said, well, we need to pursue this, and you need to quit your job. I was ready to quit as the maintenance director. It was a little gross in a nursing home, but another story. And so he wanted me to actually move on and set up the chair and run this same program in a different nursing home. And so I quit my job, and I was calling him, and he never returned my calls. Finally, I got on my wife's cell phone and called him, and he answered. And so I said, hey, Mark, how's it going? He said, who's this? I said, oh, this is Tom Bears. Oh, well, I've been meaning to call you. And I said, well, that's good, because I quit my job, ready to go do this other thing. Well, we have a problem that, and I said, what's that? I said, well, our insurance won't cover alternative health therapies. And I said, really? I said, well, this is non-invasive. It's just music. I said, well, so anyway, that was the end of that. I said, the old, if if I tell you this, if you tell anybody else, I have to shoot you. But basically, what he said is that 80% of the patient base in nursing homes is Alzheimer's related. So if we're able to create that much differentiation in the prognosis for an Alzheimer's patient, we would put them out of business within a matter of 3 months. So there that went. And actually, the reason I was ready to quit is because that's when I met up with Curtis Clark. I had put a bunch of transducers in his house, in his media room that he built under the deck. It works very well in redwood decks. And so that's when I first started working with Curtis Clark. So, so if you don't know, he interestingly enough passed away from Alzheimer's here last July. So apparently he hadn't continued to use the technology that he had to help with his prognosis. But from that, the frequencies that I use, as I mentioned earlier with the hemisync, we use, say for instance, the 40 hertz. So these are all, let's see, I was going to bring this up, all from clinical trials, which are all on the website. And so they're easily researchable. And the ones that I use are the ones that I found the highest incidence of the specific frequencies. The 40 hertz was, I ran into that in a whole bunch of studies saying that the 40 hertz was in a brainwave scan, if the 40 hertz frequency was down, or then that was an early indicator of Alzheimer's or some other type of dementia. There's many different types. And so that was the first frequency I put together. So with our healing frequency, we use 40 hertz. And then the secondary frequency, we always try to install these drivers in pairs. The reason for that is so we can get that differential frequency. So we get, with the hemisync and that kind of thing, we get that with a set of headphones. With putting the transducers in a chair, we induce that differential frequency across both sides of the chair. And because of the differential, it actually creates a moving standing wave, which is kind of oxymoronic. But what that's saying is the waveform is actually moving up and down and back and forth in the chair. And so in many cases, like this was, let's see here. This is one of the clinical trials that was showing how the different, as you can see down here, we have trimodal and audio-visual, visual tactile, visual shape, and then all these different things and how they affect different parts of the brain. So that kind of supports my theory that if we're inducing and exciting different parts of the brain with the same information, and it's accurate, then we can start recreating some of the synaptic response between the hemispheres. And so that's kind of one of the clinical trials that supported that, on top of my actual physical experience with a gal at the nursing home. The other ones that we went with are, well, here's the whole thing. So there are many clinical trials that I have on the website that correlate or substantiate all this. And so all my healing frequencies, I have 14 of them, and that if anybody purchases any products from me, I send those as a Google Drive document and an MP3 format, which I know is not great. I can render them in Ogg Vorbis also. And then our all of our devices that we use typically use, you know, a Bluetooth receiver. And so this is my portable setup. And so that's the actual driver there. And so you can see, you know, it's quite small. And so then with that, if I want to mount it to a chair, then there you see them mounted right to the frame of the chair. So that's where the magnetic mounting makes a huge difference. And so now I can impart not only all the healing frequencies, one of the other common frequency that the therapist uses is 68 hertz. And in some of these clinical trials, that's been shown to stimulate the natural endogenous opiate zones of the brain. And so with that, the massage therapist can get very quick pain reduction. Any of the frequencies that we use have induce what's called vasodilatation. So immediately, and music will have the same effect because of the vibratory input stimulates blood flow. So we can increase blood flow to all the limbs, and that, as a matter of fact, then reduces hypertension. So in many cases, if you have somebody that comes in, if you want to take their blood pressure, and we run a few frequencies, we can reduce that typically by 10 or 15 points in a matter of about half an hour. So that in itself is something that is of interest as far as a healing modality. I started in on the differential frequencies. Instead of using what HemiSync uses, you know, like say we've got 100 hertz and 105 hertz, so we get this 5 hertz differential. I will take that 100 hertz as one channel, and the other channel would be 100.00528. The 528 is the resonant frequency of DNA. And in fact, it's been shown if you play the 528 hertz as a physical sensation, it can actually reform the helix in DNA. So I use that as a derivative. And with that, because of that very low differential, instead of having, if you play the 5 hertz, it's very strong as a differential, and it becomes almost irritating because it's very strong. So we have a primary and a secondary, and the differential is the tertiary, and it's twice the decibels, almost 10 decibels higher than the primary and the secondary. So we know what happens when we get a magnitude shift of that frequency. But by using the small differential, that's what creates the moving standing wave in the chair. So it becomes a very, very effective vibratory massage. And so we incorporate that into all of our healing frequencies. But still, music, I mean, that's all fine and well. And you know, because we can be very specific about it, and worked with a guy by the name of Olaf Skill who studied all these. Oh, goodness. Did I lose you? Olaf Skill, you'll see him on here, and all his frequencies are listed. Charles Butler's frequencies. So I spent, you know, starting in 2012, you know, studying, you know, what are the vibratory effects of different frequencies as far as being, you know, having a healing modality. And so that's where they're all derived. It's not just something that I invented myself. Hang on a second here. Any questions so far?
So how strong are these vibrations? Is it is it so loud and strong that you need to protect your hearing, or is it very subtle?
No, no. In fact, all the installations that we did at CES, the transducers are always, we always tune the system so that the transducers are 10 dB below the rest of the audio. And so then we're not an audio source. So that contains then the just all the vibration in the seating structure at a very low sound pressure level. In fact, typically we're running an audio system and we add the transducers to it. I will, specifically tune it so it doesn't become a point source. A chair like this doesn't produce, that great audio. And so that's augmented. In this case, I'm using this little mixer. And so I can run all my YouTube stuff through that. And then this little, I know it's Behringer, but their stuff holds up pretty well. So I use a lot of their stuff, but I'm not going back to my old carvers. I'd love to use the carvers for everything. But what that does is that I can take the optical output from the TV and run it right into this mixer and then out to this so that I have very tight control of the, let me show you, of the whole, we have full-blown EQs on this so that I can very accurately control the amount of information that I'm creating through the speakers and also then through the transducer. So
is this
I'm
the
using,
sense? Can you describe the sensation of the chair? Is it like a purring cat or a humming engine? What does it feel like?
all the drivers that I build are because of the dual dome configuration. That means it's extremely well damped. There's I use this one's using a 52 MgO neodymium magnet structure inside and for this mounting magnet. And so it actually comes off of here. I can locate that on the furniture and then it self-centers onto the magnet structure. And then I just insert it on, I can mount it onto the chair. Because of that, the high damping ratio, it's producing true sine wave. And so if we're playing a musical instrument to it, the whole idea is that with true sine wave, we can recreate the vibrational signature of any musical instrument. So if you play a guitar and it's across your abdomen, and then when you strum it, you're in contact with the instrument, and so it is creating tactile or kinesthetic sound, which is your whole body. And so only the guitarist gets to experience that unless you use these transducers. And now through the recorded medium, I can reproduce that in the chair. And so some people used to call that listening, critically with your butt. So that's kind of the case, but it's all up your back and that kind of thing. So it does create that vibrational information through the whole seating structure. So you can feel it with your hands, your backside, your legs, down into your feet. And so it's not like you're probably all you've heard of what's called a butt kicker. And the name is very descriptive of what it does. And before butt kicker came out, when we did the CES and CEDIAs with Harman Group and Runco, there was no butt kicker. And then so we only had to compete with subwoofers because they all said, well, if we crank ours up enough, you can feel it. But yeah, but you're gonna, somewhere around 90 hertz, if it's, you know, a long, extended period of time, you're going to create a permanent hearing loss. The reason I know this is because I developed this product. I was a hospital corpsman in the Coast Guard back in the 70s, and when I got out, I worked for Colorado Hearing and Speech. In a period of 2.5 years, I did over 30,000 hearing tests. And from doing those hearing tests, the results came back and showed that 80% of young adults under 20 already had a permanent high frequency hearing loss. And it wasn't from industrial noise exposure, it was from listening to loud music, myself included. So I looked at, well, why do I like to play my music so loud? And that's when I came up with that first waterbed transducer. Said, well, I want to be able to feel it. I said, there's got to be a way, you know, through direct transfer to feel the music without having a high sound pressure level. And so that's where the first conceptualization came. Now the big difference, well, first off, you know, a butt kicker is terrible. There's two different types of vibrational transducer that's used for audio. One is the butt kicker is a moving mass. So we have a very large coil. We put a magnet slug inside of that thing, and that's why it looks like a football with heat sink on it. Is because you create a lot of heat because you need a 1,000-watt amplifier to drive it. But the biggest problem with that is the damping ratio is horrendous. We have this giant slug. Let's say we put a 60 hertz signal to it. It's produce a 60 hertz and then keep ringing for many seconds afterwards. With this structure, you put the 60 hertz to it, and it's just going to stop after that's done. And so that's very, very high damping ratio. My aerospace engineer father said, well, don't bother building because too well damped. I said, well, okay. But still went ahead and built him. He's gone, so not a critic anymore. But at any rate.
How much power are you putting into these things?
Well, this little guy here, unfortunately, he's Chinese, but he works pretty well. And he's 75 watts per channel. And he'll drive, I put him in parallel, and this will drive up to 4 transducers at a time.
Okay.
And so in this case, this guy is a 4-channel amp, and he's 100 watts per channel. And so that'll drive up to 8 transducers. And so I have them in the chair. There's just 2 of them in there. And then this is an older driver. And so in this case, still the magnetic mounting, but we've gone through the wooden frame, and then the transducer is still just magnetically coupled to that fastener. And so there's 2 of those in this chair. Now with my good old Carver ZR1600, which is still a tri-path amplifier, 800 watts per channel. I have a picture of it here somewhere, but with that, I've run up to 12 transducers in one chair. So just gross overkill, and you get a lot of phasing issues. So we don't really like to do that. So the key to this is, as far as from an audiophile standpoint of view, is the high damping ratios, true sine wave. So it's accurate to, well, take back a step further. One of my goals of building these devices was that I play the violin, and when I play the violin, I feel it through my clavicle. It transfers through bone conduction into my occipital lobe, so I hear it through bone conduction, and then I obviously feel it out in my hand also. So that is the experience of the instrument
that only the performer gets to experience, the musician. And so I said, well, I want to be able, my goal with some of the first drivers that I built was to be able to recreate the vibrational signature of a violin. So that would require a very broad bandwidth. And so with that's where the dome came in, because the dome, because the damping ratios are very high, I can create a much broader bandwidth than the butt kicker would ever think of doing. They're pretty much limited to 100 hertz. Some of the underwater speakers that I built were tested at the University of Virginia Commonwealth in an underwater application to 100 kilohertz. So near DC to 100 kilohertz underwater. So that's a high damping ratio again. But what that translates to when we're, in fact, let me go back a little ways. Part of where we started, some of the first transducers that I built with Clark were used in military simulators. So we've got, still do have the Clark, and that's one of their main businesses. They're still in business. Curtis Clark is gone, is military simulations. And so what we learned very early on with our drivers, because of the accuracy to the signal, is that it doesn't, there's no latency. And so what we found is they like our drivers because of with the butt kickers, there's a latency effect. In fact, the butt kicker salesman told me one time at a CES show, he said, "Oh yeah, we put them in simulators, but you know, they're so strong it made people sick." I said, "Well, yeah, the problem is that you have latency issues. So your audio and your video don't match up to your tactile. And so the brain can't put that together and it creates nausea." And so I say, well, it's not a salient point to me. I'm going to left. But so we've got them in F-14 Tomcats, Bradley tanks, Apache helicopters. Unfortunately, I've gotten bad press here lately, but and they're still using, that's one of Clark's main business thrusts is the simulator industry. And so the parallel to that is when I play Star Wars to this thing, movies are just great because, you know, I can get all my sound effects from, you know, near DC, all the way, well, to 20 kilohertz, obviously you can't feel that, but most people can feel right up to about 6K pretty well, and hearing impaired and autistic people typically up to around 8K or so. And so that gives us a very broad, you know, a lot of bandwidth to work with. And the best example of that I like is the speeders in Star Wars. The primary frequency of that thing is right around 2K as it's going through the forest. Well, when it hits a tree, it's a little lower frequency, but in the interim period, we're creating a physical sensation for the speeders in Star Wars. That's a whole nother level of you know, sensory excitation. We talk about immersion, and then we see, you know, Dolby, like say Atmos, and we got how many more channels can we add? You know, we started with 2, went to 4, we're probably to 8, and how many of those are subwoofers? And so that's a problem, because if you expose yourself to 110 decibels is coming out of a, you know, a clips, you know, or whatever my speaker is, you know, probably going to cause, it doesn't take any more than a half an hour to actually create a permanent high frequency hearing loss. So because we're running, you know, a good 10 dB below the audio, what I point out to people also is that, okay, I've got all these channels, I've got, you know, all these cute little speakers out there that are trying to create the spatial imaging. And so at the high, you know, mids and highs, so I put a couple subwoofers, you know, 2.1 channels of subwoofer in the room, and then I crank that up to, you know, to create the physical sensation with the subwoofer. I'm loading the room, and so what happens is in the room, if it's sealed, I become, because I'm hollow, I become the compressible item. And so that's how they, you know, subwoofer creates that physical impact, is because I'm being compressed. So what I would put out to you is that, well, if it's compressing me, what's it doing to all those, you know, cute little mids and tweets I got out there? Aren't they responding also to that pressurization? And so now I've kind of compromised my mid-range and high frequencies because I had this big subwoofer and they're pounding away. So my comment to you is, well, if I use transducers in the seating structure, I don't really need a subwoofer at all. I can run it at very low levels, just an audible, you know, low audible level, and still get good presentation, good fidelity, and then use the transducers to create all the rest of the physical effects 10 dB below all the rest of the audio. So it doesn't become a point source.
So you're saying you can reproduce the effect of subwoofers by using these tactile transducers?
That's correct, yes.
Interesting.
So is it possible for consumers to retrofit these things into their furniture at home?
Yes.
Tell
Yes,
us.
that's what so this portable system includes the amplifier, 2 drivers, and then a set of headphones. So they're all put together. This just plugs in the wall. It's I have an optical input, but it also has Bluetooth. So all I'm doing is connecting, you know, to my smart device and playing all my music that way. Or since this TV is Bluetooth, I can connect to the system with the Bluetooth. And then all I'm doing is taking this driver and see if I'm wrong way here. Here we go. So here's my chair, whatever. So if I want to energize this table, I've just now done that. There we go. So let's put them in the middle. Magnets, like say, are quite strong. So I can locate the magnet. Now take the transducer and attach it. And it's hooked up to the amplifier. And then with this portable system, like say, the amplifier is already there, the Bluetooth is already there. And so that's a very simple, oh, and these are also waterproof, so I can throw them in my hot tub or pool. So I'm still doing the underwater sound, but in a hot tub. Now you become the compressible item in the hot tub, so it's a lot more physical sensation.
So if I wanted to put one of these in my listening chair, what would you recommend?
Well, you could start with the portable system, or I have, let's see here, let me get on. By the way, the website is hifivibe.com, or you can go to HiFi Wellness, or synonymous. This is my little, let's see if this is going here. There it goes. My little pro system, so that includes two drivers, and then this little Behringer 4-channel, and then the Flow 8 mixer, and then all the cabling. The Flow 8, come on. Oh, he's down here. Is the EQ, or the mixer bar that I showed you earlier. is what controls this guy. I'm getting a little lag. There he is. I'll probably keep going now. So it is actually Bluetooth controlled. So the mixer that I had up on there actually correlates to these guys here. And so I actually have an analog way to mix, and then also the Bluetooth controls everything. And so, and in this case, I'm just running it, I can't really, to a sound bar. So this is kind of a minimalistic kind of system. Now, if I'm going with one of your systems, so there's a few different ways to approach this. The Flow 8 gives you good interface to almost any amplifier, and it's pretty cost effective at like $300. Then you can use out in what I call the Shake Shack. I have a picture of that somewhere. I've got my Carver ZR1600 out there, and with that I'm also using a Behringer ZR1800, or ZR18, which is an 18 channel preamp or mixer, and that works really well for interface. But as I come from a pro audio, I run sound for my Audience of One children's theater, and so in that I'm using a Behringer Wing to run that. And in that venue, I've used it to at one point put transducers in the risers. Things going crazy. A little latency here, sorry.
But Tom, if we were to put one of those transducers in a chair, would that be sufficient to get the effects that you're describing?
I recommend doing 2 at a time.
Okay. And if you had 2, then you'd have one amplifier driving the pair. That would be enough.
Yeah.
And how much those transducers cost, just out of curiosity?
Their retail is $649 a piece.
Got it. And then there's the software. So on your website, you have all of these sample tones, and that's very interesting. But is that what people actually use for music therapy? Do you need to see a therapist to have a prescription? How does that work?
No, it's just music. It's vibration. It's frequencies. So there's no prescription. I've got them in MP3 files, and so on Google Drive, and so I just email them to you, and you can download them onto your smart device, or it's a tablet, or I've got I run this little portable system either with my cell phone or this tablet.
Yep. And how long do you find people should take this therapy? How long is this session to get a good effect?
Well, the massage therapists run a 1-hour session.
So you sit there with the sort of the vibrating chair for an hour with different frequencies? Yeah. Okay.
And they usually well, with this mixer I can mix the healing frequencies with music, so that just gives me another option. It is Bluetooth controlled, which was that slider display, and it has a Bluetooth music input also, so I can connect my my cell phone to that and play any music that I have on my music player that way.
Got it. So instead of tones, it's got the music signal coming through.
I can just play frequencies, or tones, or music and frequencies.
Got it. For an hour. And then how long does it take to get these kinds of effects that you had described? Is it immediate, or do you need to do it for a while to start having it hit you?
All the healing frequencies last 8.5 minutes.
Right.
And you can see an effect with that in that 8.5 minutes. That's an Olaf skill
Interesting.
specification that I adopted.
So are there any places in Boston where these things are demonstrated where we could go and try it out?
Not yet. So I'm talking to you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, the white driver that I showed you, I have quite a few of those out there, and it turns out that material is ductile, and so if they weren't mounted, perfectly horizontal, then I would get some deformation of the dome, and then that would cause some coil rub. I could take them and squeeze them together and get the coil rub gone. This black material is what drives a lot of the cost. There's over $100 in cost just for the plastic, and it is a nylon 12, which is what they make guitar strings out of. So that's a good synergy. And then with glass fill. So that makes them very structurally sound. So I don't get any shifting of the material. And so I was replacing the white ones with the black ones, and that took me a while. But now I'm just producing the black. So when you get on the website, you'll see different things with the white driver, and those are no longer available. Those are, so, I've been going through the prototypical stage with this technology because I built the first prototype of that, of this magnetically mounted device back in 2012. So I've been at it for quite a while, just to prove out the concept, make sure, because, I've got Clark synthesis transducers that are, still working 30 years later without any problems. So I want to make sure that once I got this out there, and that's the reason it took me that long. And then I met Ken at the CEDIA trade show. And so, because I figured I was finally ready to put this back out into public and know that it's something that's going to last 20 years or so.
How did you know which frequencies to select? Why did you choose those particular frequencies? And what do you mean by the term pure frequency? Is that the amount of distortion, or what does that mean also?
Well, because of the high damping ratio on this thing, it's true sine wave. And so
Sine wave pure, or does it just mean it's accurate? What's a true wave?
Yeah, that's all over the website. That's a true sine wave. If you see the ripple coming off of the water, that's a true sine wave. If it's a square waveform, then the body rejects it as being natural. So it's being, and that's, where we, fought our digital audio for so long. Well, how can it be? It can't be true analog because it's all on and off. So it's all square waves. So how do we get around that? And so actually the transducer kind of helps with that. We can, because it's damping some of the, the peaks, some of the corners on that square wave, and converting them into true sine wave. And in the research that was done, with, if you've seen these, what's called a TENS pad, you can have an electronic device that you put on, and it's actually, puts voltage or creates a current through the muscle fascia, and we pulse that on and off. So that essentially creates a frequency, if you will, but it's on off. And then people use that to do muscle relaxation and pain reduction, but it's very short term because the body doesn't recognize it as being a natural phenomenon. I've had people I had one gal who had had peripheral neuropathies in her ankle for like over 10 years. I put her on one of my tables and just ran 3 different frequencies for that, being the 68 hertz, the 40 hertz. I always use that because, you know, if you can help people, that's the Alzheimer's frequency. And then the lymphatic frequency, which is 42 hertz. And that completely got rid of her neuropathy. All the tingling was gone. And it that was from one session just running, and we ran out of time. So it was just like running 8 frequencies. And weeks later, you know, I saw her again. I said, well, how's your peripheral neuropathy? And she said, it's just gone. And I said, okay. So we see, just like the Alzheimer's thing, we see very, very quick results of this, because, and I think it's, you know, it's because of again, the multi-sensory part of it. We're stimulating so different, you know, sensory receptors in the body, that's why we have this memory retention. And so I think that's why this technology works so well. And was never my intent to do the medical part, because I wanted to feel Neil Peart's drums. I mean, that's I mean, if you bring the YouTube is a blast for this thing, because you can bring up all these old rock concerts. And a big part of this is that, you know, since I can feel, you know, not only the kick drum, but the bass guitar and the lead guitar and all the synthesizer. So I get to feel all the instruments at a low sound pressure level, and it's very controllable. And so I'm getting what I call the front row, you know, sensation that I would get at a rock concert at a very low sound pressure level. So I'm not, you know, damaging my hearing any further than I already have. So
What equipment do you need to reproduce that?
uh just I can bring it up on my TV.
Just two of your transducers and an amp?
Right. Yes. So this is a complete system. This is hooked into actually I do have, there's a little, I've got an optical to analog output that's hooked into here, and then that is, I'm sending signal out of here. So my mains are are the sound bar,
Okay.
and then this amplifier is what's driving the transducers in the chair. And so anything that I bring up on this TV, movies or YouTube or you know, any of your shows, it's going to play to this system. And so it's and because it's, you know, it's very controllable, and for me, you know, it satisfies my tactile, haptic, kinesthetic part of me, and it's not loud. So I've greatly reduced the sound pressure level. So I can even watch, and because of the broad bandwidth, if I'm watching a news report with a, you know, a female reporter, you know, I used to crank that up. My wife has gone nuts. We're back and forth on the volume. With this system, I can bring up the audio portion of the presentation and adjust the tactile sensation to what I like. And because it's coming to the chair, it actually overcomes my hearing loss through bone conduction. So that's just another aspect of the getting old. And so being able to adjust it that way, you know, I can control the audio and the rest of the sensory inputs all independent of each other. And so that's why I use the little mixer, because it's, you know, it just gives me the control that I need to adjust everything for everybody around you.
Are your chairs just sitting on the floor, or do they have to be suspended, or Anything special there?
No, this is just sitting on the floor.
Because it seems to me, with your transducer exciting the chair, the chair sitting on the floor is going to soak up a lot of that energy.
Well, most of it's, yeah, most of it's being transferred up to the frame. Now you can buy isolators. In fact, Clark still sells those, I think. And so that's just a rubber grommet basically that would go under the chair legs. But since this is sitting on carpet and pad, it has kind of the same effect. If you were on ceramic or hardwood or something, that might be something to consider. But basically, the carpet and the pad dampen the effects into the cement. And then since I can adjust the the gain on the drivers versus the audio, then that because I'm obviously it's going to take more power to excite a chair than is a paper or polypropylene cone. So they're typically, that's kind of a disparity thing. Is that you're going to have require a little more signal to the drivers than you do to your speakers. That makes sense?
Yep.
This is Al Southwick again. First of all, can you guys hear me? Because I had to switch computers.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Once I saw the device, it suddenly dawned on me. I had seen the Clark early design stuff at a CES show, probably back in the either 80s or 90s, and got very interested in it because one of the applications that I eventually wound up using an Aura system for, which is more similar to the butt kicker, was put bass shakers into my automobile. And it really improved the bass response on just about every system. What I die laughing about is being in traffic and hearing this guy pull up beside me, and he's got a subwoofer somewhere that is rattling the entire vicinity around the car as well as the car. And it makes me wonder how long the vehicle will stay glued together with the vibrations. But I did find that the automotive application, unfortunately, I don't have room to button them to the seats anymore, and I don't like bolting or drilling through the floorboards of the vehicle. But they were quite impressive and did a nice job in terms of extending the frequency response. So I'm wondering, in a couple of instances, one, for automotive use, do you have anything? I guess it would be just the transducers hooked to some kind of an automotive powered amplifier. And two, it would also probably be a useful thing to maybe counteract vibration in a vehicle, basically by using feedback from the engine, inverting it or inverting it from a pickup somewhere in the vehicle, and creating a complementary inversion to damp out vibration and so forth within the vehicle, quieting the noise. And the thing that's impressive about these is the wide frequency range.
Right.
So that might be
actually
another
years
application
ago,
to kick around.
well, yeah, that's years ago I did a project with Boeing at one of their manufacturing facilities, and they had issues with somebody had mounted these 5,000-pound transformers on the roof on like a 3-inch concrete pad. And so the 60 hertz, or no, it was two phase. So the 120 hertz was driving the whole building. And so it was not only, it would travel down the walls. We put 2 Clark drivers underneath the pad in the ceiling, and then sampled it with a microphone, and then just played with the phasing and did phase cancellation, and we got 15 dB of phase cancellation. And so that because, you know, decibels are logarithmic. So that's a huge change. And Boeing loved it. And then they went a little bit further. Said, well, now we're getting, they did get a couple of harmonics. And so they bought a little fancier frequency and analyzing gear and tuned those out also and got another 2 or 3 dB out of it. But that's how, powerful vibration is. And because of, with Clark, I've always used, and with these the neodymium magnets, you just, you're creating so much more efficiency by using neodymium. And all the Clarks I built were 42 MGO, which is magnetic Gauss Oersted, and these are a 52 MGO, both for the internal driver part of it and the magnetic mount. And so it holds them on there pretty well. So we get a really good coupling and good vibrational transfer.
All right. Well, we have just gone past the hour. So thank you very much, Tom, for this presentation. Are there any additional questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you very much, Tom.
I do have one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go
for
ahead.
some reason my space bar isn't working, so I can't just turn it on. I got to go after it with a mouse.
We can hear
I
you.
can
Go ahead,
recall
please.
back in the day when I was in college, there was kind of a humorous anecdote about somebody putting a speaker in a car or under a chair or something and running it, I guess, between 5 and 15 hertz to the point where the person couldn't control themselves and defecated on the spot. So I'm wondering if you've had any experiences like that.
Don't
Yeah,
do that.
I've heard that too. Yeah, somewhere between 10 and 15 hertz. Now what happens is as we get to the lower frequencies, these will produce a pretty strong physical sensation at 20 hertz. But anything below that, because this relies upon inertial force to transfer the vibration into the seating structure. And anything below that 20 hertz, I don't have enough inertial force to create that effect. Now, we could, if you wanted to test it, you want to get a system, I can, the other part of this is, let me show you here. This is, so if you want to, you can listen to, I have a few of my healing frequencies on here. So if you want to listen to them, they're on the website. And then if that's not enough for you, there's a NASA, this is my NASA frequency. And so that's 90 hertz. And that's actually been shown. You can see all the osteoporosis stuff here. This has actually been showing, my drivers will produce this all day long, actually shown to increase bone and muscle mass. It was developed, it's a NASA frequency because they use it in weightless environments. So it's actually even more effective when in a weighted environment because gravity's trying to hold you into the chair. And so that's just another beneficial frequency. If you run out of things to look at, well, there's one of my tables, standard massage table, but everything's built into that with Bluetooth also, so you can take it out and set it up and pair it with your there's my NASA. This is my under extra frequencies. This is a list that some guy, I need to give him credit for it, put together. And this thing goes on and on and on. So this shows you what specific frequencies will do for you. And this all on the website also. And this thing is very comprehensive. I have an app on my phone and on this tablet that's called a function generator. It's actually a frequency generator. And so with that, when I'm hooked up through my Bluetooth, it's a 2-channel. And so I can dial in any set of frequencies that I want and test any of these. And so this is the most comprehensive list I've ever seen of frequencies. So, you know, theta brainwave frequency. And so you can, and so that's a 6.5. So if we want to present that as a differential frequency on my function generator, frequency generator, I could dial it in at say 60 and then 6.5. And then that would give me, or excuse me, 60 and 66.5, and that would give me my 6.5 frequency or beat mix. Are you familiar with the term beat mix or?
It's
Sure.
intermodulation, intermodulation, frequency intermodulation.
Yes, or heterodyning is another term.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so we can do that quite well.
One of the other
By
things
using
that
two
strikes
drivers.
me as an application for this, you obviously can use this underwater.
Yeah.
I worked for a defense contractor at one point that built sonar systems, and
Yes.
they are using a gadget about the size of a good sized thermos bottle, but it's all ceramics, and they use them in a matrix array system on the noses of submarines, ships, etc. In fact, I'm sure most everybody who's seen some of the photos of some of the ships, they have this bubble. It looks like a porpoise nose on the lower part of the front of the bow of the ship, and that's a dual purpose item. It contains the transducers, but it also helps improve the flow efficiency of the water around the hull of the ship. But I'm thinking,
cavitation layer.
Yeah, but I'm thinking that something like this, which works underwater, could be used as a better, maybe more. I guess it depends on the power capacity, but in an array of number of these, it might prove a better design, certainly, than what's being used right now, which is a very old design of the ceramic system that they're using to literally create pulses. And I'm also curious, have you tried anything beyond sine waves? Have you actually tried square waves or triangle waves or something like that to see what kind of information, or has anybody tried that, to see what kind of feedback comes from using different things other than sine waves and music?
Yeah, that function generator I mentioned will do sine wave, square wave, triangle waves, you know, whatever you want. Do phasing, and is very adjustable, so we can play with that. Years, I'm trying to remember what year, would have been about 94. We did a 100-foot houseboat that was built in Kentucky, the skipper's dream, and we took that and actually I cruised that down to the Gulf. It was supposed to go to Tortola, and with that vessel we did not only their salon, so we put transducers under the salon just for the entertainment area, but we also put four transducers in the hull along the main keel inside the boat with a frequency generator and a microphone. And so we could play music through the hull and it would transfer as far as you wanted to go, miles. And also, when it was sitting in port, we found out that barnacles don't like frequencies between 25 and 35 hertz. So when it was sitting in port, we would run that frequency, generate that frequency, and then that would do barnacle and scaling protection. So that's a whole nother application for using vibration in halls. And the neat part is doesn't have to be on the outside of the hall, it can be on the inside. So then we get a much better transfer function through the ribbing of the vessel.
Can they be used as receivers as well as transducers?
Yes. I put them inside guitars and use them as a receiver.
Oh, okay.
And inside a guitar, you strum the guitar and it'll actually produce a 1 volt peak to peak without any amplification.
Wow. Certainly
Yeah.
not for a microphone input.
Right. Right. Well, yeah. Well, right. It's a strong signal, and that's where the mixers come in,
Mm. And the external pads on the input.
Right, right, yeah. Sounds like you know some about electronics then.
Well, my background's electrical engineering.
It is. Oh, okay, great, great. Well, I'm electromechanical. I'm not electrical. So.
Mm. One of the other things I was thinking about when I initially saw the promotion that Dave Hadaway put up for all of us for this meeting was I recall back in the day a lot of people had problems with the ultrasonic burglar alarms that were installed in jewelry cases. And they would go home with headaches, dizziness, nausea, etc. And it made me think also of the recent, still unresolved problem with Havana syndrome, where people were getting suddenly sick.
Oh, right.
And I was wondering if you had any insights in that area at all.
Yeah.
Well, from what I understand, it's low infrasonics, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's I think the jewelry cases were running around 20 to 25 kilohertz.
Right, right.
And I don't know exactly, I would assume at a certain point, obviously 48 kilohertz and 44 kilohertz sampling rates don't seem to bother people too much on CDs, but that's not actually generating audio at that level, at that frequency
Those
in the
get
speakers
filtered
and
out.
such. But it makes me wonder, a little bit about, I wonder if this is exactly what was happening with the Havana syndrome.
Havana, I think, was microwave, much, much higher frequencies, at least what I
Right.
heard.
Mm.
Right. Now because this is, I use a high density coil. I use the same coils from a Precision Econoline out of Florida that I've been getting for 40 years because they make the best coil in the world as far as I'm concerned. And so the high density part of it is the winding is very specific. It's put on to keep it in the top of the magnet structure. And so a couple things I've buried him back in Clark days, buried him in the ground. They make a great antenna. And also they will produce some RF at those higher frequencies. Because you got a coil and a magnet, if you put, 48 hertz through it, it's going to create some RF.
There's another application, earthquake sensor.
Right? Oh, yeah. Seismometer.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of applications for the device that seem to be, something to look into and see what can be done, because the broad frequency range, most of the transducers that are used today, from what I can gather, are pretty limited in bandwidth. But
Right.
your transducer has a very wide bandwidth, and that might prove very advantageous.
Right, right. Actually, we did seismic studies using the transducer both as a sending device and a pickup. And so we use it to thump the ground, with a low frequency, or just use a thumper truck, and then use the transducer because the broad bandwidth. And so you get a much better frequency response than just your moving mass seismometer. So yeah, you get much higher resolution with it, or you can use it to, to create the thumper sound if you want. But Yeah, so there's a lot of applications for this. My whole, I look around, I got all this ancillary stuff. My whole focus is just building this doggone black little disc. It's as strong as I can make it and has the bandwidth that I want, so I can play with it. I mean, I have what I call the Shake Shack. It's too cold, I would take you out there, but I've got a 60-inch TV out there, and that's where my Behringer XR18 is, so a mixer, so I can tie my guitar into it, my synthesizer, whatever I want, and then run that to the ZR, 1600s. I got 800 watts, and then I can bring up YouTube and play my Neil Peart drum solo, and you can every single piece of his timpani has a different physical sensation, and because of the high damping ratios and the musicality, you can feel everyone differently through your whole body. So that's what
Stimulating.
the high fidelity part's very important for you guys, because it's like, okay, why would I introduce this vibration tipping and trying to get rid of it? Well, it's like if it's induced, correctly, it's a big part of the entertainment. And so, well, it's coming back. I mean, Butt Kicker killed it because they spent lots of money and put it in theaters, and people went in, they played them movies, and they would walk out. They wouldn't even stay for the whole movie. It just made them mad because, well, it's called a butt kicker. How long do you want to do that? And so they ruined the industry.
I love
But
that.
now it's coming back, because I went to the Sphere in Vegas last year about this time, and there are 10,000 seats with butt kickers in them. Basically, well, it's moving mass, and it's like, you people, I missed it. I wish I would have known about that, because I would have got you, a high fidelity device instead of another shaker.
Yeah.
Secret with those butt
But
kickers is the modulation. I mean, they set it up so high that when someone closed the door, you felt it in your rear end. In the movies when you went there, it wasn't very well modulated to what was on the screen.
right. Well, this would be, somebody slam the door, you're going to feel it with my drivers too. If it's in the soundtrack, and it probably would have a tactile sensation, but it's, well, I did a thing with Disney, and in fact, this is one other application. So we used my Clark drivers in they put them in the firewall of a VW and in the firewall of a Porsche, and started them up and drove them and recorded that. And then they brought that recording back to the studio at Imagineering, and played it back just to it was kind of funny. It was a Papasan wicker chair, which really worked, really resonant, fun thing. And they would play the sound sample from the Porsche and the Volkswagen. They had like 20 people that came through and asked them which is which, and every single one of them got it right. They could tell the difference between a Volkswagen and a Porsche, and using the transducer as the pickup and then as the sending device also. And they're pretty similar.
Shades of Harley Davidson, because their sound is actually kind of trademarked, because they've gone after other motorcycle companies that have tried to create the same throaty roar that Harley Davidson bikes have. And
right,
it's a similar situation.
I'm interested in the. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Couple things. Yeah, my favorite thing with these transducer in the system is pipe organ music. It's just, okay, I'm at the cathedral now, because I could feel every vibration coming out of those pipes. But another really fun one is offshore racing. And I got thousands of horsepower in these things, and they're bouncing off the waves. And if it's recorded correctly, you feel that in your chair. So that's a whole nother level of reality. That you can't reproduce it. I don't care how many speakers you put in the room, you can't reproduce that kind of a sensation. So this really fills in and is really truly immersive. I get kind of mad when they call it immersive. I said, you guys don't have a clue. You're missing, 4 other sensory inputs. You just concentrate on the audio. So you're missing the boat. We got to get together.
I'm talking about the health benefits. It seems, according to what you mentioned, that there are a lot of health benefits on this for everything. And I never heard of this being used out there. I know insurance companies wouldn't pay for the treatment, but
Nah,
they can stick pins in you and get paid for that.
sure.
Areas to go that you could get an hour session, or you think this would be incorporated a lot more in the health industry where Parkinson's and dementia and all those are so costly to take care of. I mean, you would think this would be everywhere.
Well, the rest of the story with the Alzheimer's thing was, okay, so after the the corporate guy shut me down, I thought, well, this worked. It's all documented. It's on the website. If you go to the Alzheimer's part, you can read the whole story. And so after that, I said, well, okay, if they don't want to do it, surely the Alzheimer's Foundation would want to do it. And so I got hold of a guy that, what the heck was his name? Alan. Alan was the biggest fundraiser for the Alzheimer's Foundation. He had the 17 summits was his name, because he climbed 17 mountains over 14,000 feet and to raise money for the Alzheimer's Foundation. And so he was one of their biggest fundraisers. And so his mom got Alzheimer's. And so I got in contact with him, and he gave me the name of some VP at the Alzheimer's Foundation. And so I called him and told him my whole story and sent him, the whole, all the documentation, everything else. And the person I first got a hold of was very, very excited. And then the same old story. I'm calling and I don't get a call back, and they're gonna, kick it upstairs. And so finally I called Alan back. I said, Alan, I'm not getting any response from these people. Do you know anybody higher up? He says, oh yeah, I know a VP at the very top. I'll give you his number. So he gives me a number. This guy answers the phone. Surprise. And I tell him my whole story, and he said, well, Mr. Fenner, that's all fine and well, but we don't fund anything. The Alzheimer's Foundation doesn't fund anything that's not pharmaceutical related.
Oh.
I said, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
True story.
Yeah. And has
So that's why we're not curing Alzheimer's. There's no intent to do that.
Right, right. Has this been tried on like migraine headaches or something? You think that someone would have dialed in some numbers to help with migraines and done some testing on that?
Oh yeah, the 68 hertz is kind of a cure-all pain reliever for any of the peripheral neuropathies, diabetic nerve pain, migraines, any kind of headaches, any of the osteo kind of stuff. And so it works within a matter of minutes. And that's why, I have 50 massage therapists. They use it on all their customers on a regular basis. And of course, that all kind of went away with COVID. I haven't sold a table since the whole COVID thing, because, well, it's kind of hard to be a massage therapist when you can't touch people and you have to wear a mask.
Yeah.
That killed that industry. But at any rate, it's they had my one gal up in Winter Park was one of my early adopters, and she had customers that came back in during COVID and said, well, if you can't do a massage, can you just hook me up so I can play my own music through my cell phone? She said, well, it still costs you $60 an hour. And he said, here's my $60. So new profit center for her.
Yeah.
That kind of sustained her through the whole COVID thing. So, I mean, that's how entertaining is. The music is just, you're getting a music massage. That's part of my whole problem. And that's why I was glad Ken, actually got to experience it at that CEDIA show, is because it's it's a hard thing to describe.
Hmm.
But when you add it back in, I mean, it's the true essence of music and music presentation and the musician's experience of their instrument. And that's why I tell people, have you noticed when you go to a symphony concert, you can feel a lot more? Well, that's because look at how much moving mass you have with all the combination of all the instruments. It's a huge surface area. So it's far, exceeds anything you can get out of I don't care how big your speaker system is, you're still not going to duplicate the surface area, all those instruments. You got all the bass violins along the back, all the timpani, all the violins, everything is a huge surface area. So that's why a live symphony concert is, you feel more. So with this, because I can induce that in a very musical sense back into the chair, I can recreate that true live music experience.
Right. Hey guys, it's 9 o'clock, so I just want to be careful because I know people have other responsibilities in the evening. Are there any last questions for Tom while we wrap this up?
Yeah, one question, Tom. Have you thought about going to Expona, which is coming up in April? The Expona show in Chicago. It's one of the biggest shows in the country.
What is it?
It's an audio
Expona,
show.
AXPONA. Look it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll look it up. Spell it for me again.
AXPONA.
Expona.
Yes.
Okay. I hadn't heard of that one. I did CES for 6 years, but
well, it's an audio show, but you may have something to connect with there.
okay. Let me write that down.
Good idea.
If you go to YouTube, the Boston Audio Society channel, we have a presentation on there for people that went to Exponent. Nick and a couple of others go, and probably give you a little flavor of what that is.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up here. Tom, thank you again for making the time and sharing with you all the work you've been doing with this. It's really interesting.
Oh, well.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's been just a great opportunity. Really appreciate you allowing me to come on and give my spiel.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right.
Now,
Well, thanks, everyone.
Was this recorded? Oh, thank you.
Yes.
It was indeed. And we put it up on our YouTube channel. I hope that's
Oh,
okay.
that's where it is. Okay.
Yeah. So for people who weren't able to make it tonight and for future generations.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, I'll have to go and check that out.
You bet. All right. Well, thank you again. It's a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
pleasure to have you. Okay, guys.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Bye
Have
now.
a good night. Take
Okay.
care.
All right. You too.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Bye-bye.